Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to my channel. Today's recipe will be frozen paratas. The three ingredients we'll be needing is all-purpose flour, salt, and olive oil or ghee. We'll be needing 3 cups of all-purpose flour. Then we'll be needing 2 teaspoons of salt. The reason why it looks like I am putting a lot of salt in here is only because one of my kids hid my teaspoon, so I could not find it at the moment. I later did find it in their toy box, but I'm not putting that much. I'm just putting exactly 2 teaspoons. I'm using a 1/4 teaspoon here. That's why it just looks like it's a lot, but it's only 2 teaspoons. Then you'll need 2 tablespoons of oil or ghee. If you don't have ghee, then oil will work depending on what oil you have. I use olive oil here. Vegetable oil does work too, but ghee works the best because it just tastes phenomenal with it. Now, I don't tell you guys how much water because you really just need to knead it until you get a smooth dough. But I did use 1.5 cup of warm water, not cold, not hot, warm water. And then later when I started kneading it, I just wet my hand with whatever was left over in the cup. So try making it with 1.5, and then after that see how much you need. Once you are done kneading, your dough should be a little bouncy, so when you touch it, it bounces back up and it does not get stuck to your hand, so it's not sticky dough. That means that your dough is smooth, and then you'll cover this for around 30 minutes and just let it sit and rest for a little bit. Once 30 minutes are over, just knead it slightly. You're not going to turn it over or anything like that. Just slightly push your fingers in and then go ahead and start making the balls for the smaller paratas. Now, I didn't want to make huge ones because my tava, my pan, is not all that big. So I made them pretty smooth. I made them around, I think, a normal hand size. I didn't really measure how big they were, but just like a normal small roti, not those really huge ones. Now, first thing first, you are going to flatten out your ball so it looks like a circle, and you are going to flatten out the edges. So you're going to make it look a little bit like a UFO. I'll show you how to do that in a second. So you just you kind of like pinch the ends. So your middle is thick, the middle of this circle is thick, and the sides are nice and thin. This actually helps you get even roti, like it helps you get an even circle, and you won't have too much dough on one side and too less dough on the other side. So basically it will just roll out so you could cook it evenly without having some parts that are still raw and all that. Now, the special thing about these frozen paratas is that you will oil them, and you're going to, there's 2 different ways for this. Because basically what happens is that when you cook this and then afterwards, it comes to a point that they're really flaky and they kind of like break apart really easily, and it tastes like you're eating a croissant parata. It's actually really good. Now, if you use butter, it'll taste more like a croissant than a parata, but I didn't want to use butter, so that's why I used oil here. Now, the first way that I'm going to show you, you're actually going to be cutting it out into a cone. So first thing first, of course, you're going to need to oil it. So you're going to oil it, make sure that the whole circumference of the circle is covered with oil. And then after that, throw a little bit of flour on top, like just like sprinkle it on top, just so it doesn't, just so it gets a little stable, because if there's no traction, it's not going to like stick together, and we want it to stick together, and we don't want all the oil to come out, so it's going to kind of absorb a little bit of the oil and just make sure it stays in the parata. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to make a slit from the middle of the circle to one side, and then you're going to roll it into a cone. So as you can see right here, I'm cutting it from the middle. So you're making a Pac-Man face, and you're just taking his upper lip and just rolling it until you get to the other side of his face. And now once it's fully rolled, you're going to smash it into a circle. Once you smash your cone into a circle, you need to do the same thing as before. Flatten out the edges so it looks a little bit more like a UFO than a circle, of course. And you want the sides to be as thin as possible so that it evenly cooks. And then of course just flour it a little bit and go at it, make it into a bigger roti. Now one thing to remember is when you are making this roti, make sure not to flatten it out too much where it's paper thin, then it won't actually taste all that great. Make sure that you flatten it till the desired thinness, but just don't make it see-through, because if you make it see-through, then when you try to cook it, it's just going to become hard. Now the second way of making this is that you cut them into strips and then you roll it like a cinnamon roll. So it will actually end up turning into this small little roll that you just kind of pat down and roll out. So the steps from here are basically the same as the one from before. You're going to smash it in a little bit, make it look like a UFO, and roll it out. Once you are done, so don't roll them out, like don't roll it out one by one and then do the last step. Roll them out all together, kind of like don't stack them. If you stack them, then you have to put a lot of flour on it, and then before you slightly cook them, there's just flour all over the place, and it's a whole nother cleanup job. I did do that mistake, so I'm advising you not to do that. Kind of put them out on your counter one by one. Put parchment paper underneath if you feel like your counters are dirty, but if your counters are not dirty, you could just wipe them out and down and put the paratas on top of this, on top of the counter. The next step is important if you are freezing them. If you're not freezing them, then there's no need for this portion of the video. You don't need to look at this. But what you do is that if you are going to freeze them, you need to make sure your pan is at a low heat. So heat the pan on low heat and then put your paratha on top and just cook it for 30 seconds each. Now the reason why we're doing this is we're just making a thin cooked layer. It's not fully cooked from inside, it's just slightly cooked from both sides. And there's two reasons. Because it'll be slightly cooked, they won't be sticking to each other, and then on top of that, when you actually put it on, you don't have to cook it for that long. So once you're when you need to, like when you take it out of the freezer for emergency, you don't need to cook it for that long because it's already slightly cooked. And when you do cook it, it tastes better if you throw some oil or butter on top. So this is after they come out of the freezer. Right now, you're just going to lightly cook them 30 seconds each side on low heat, and keep on putting them on parchment papers and kind of like stack them. If you could see here, I have flour all over the place because I stacked them and I had flour everywhere. Now I stacked them with parchment paper in between, then put them into a Ziploc bag, and then put them in the freezer just like that. You don't need any more steps over there. To actually cook one of the frozen ones just to show you how it comes out. Now, I didn't put that much oil in it, but if you want this part, instead of putting oil, you should put butter because it just tastes more better and flakier. Now, you need the heat to be at medium to high heat, not too hot that it ends up burning the paratha. You want it to you don't want it to burn, you want it to get cooked. So you will put it at medium to high heat and just let one side cook before you flip it. And I was pressing it down with the spatula just so that we can get the heat through the paratha. Now, since I made this for my kids, I topped it off with butter. Now, this part you don't need to do. Since it's already hot, the butter kind of melts on, and it does taste really good. I ended up eating half, like a quarter of it, and the kids ate the rest. It's really good with butter or without butter. Now, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and like this video.